My mother-in-law told my husband our baby might not be his because my people cheat, so I ordered DNA tests for everyone at Christmas and exposed the real affair. I need someone to tell me if I am losing my mind or if my mother-in-law is actually as bold as she thinks she is, because the way this all unfolded still makes my stomach do that cold drop thing, and it keeps replaying in my head while I am bouncing my baby at 3 in the morning trying to get her back down. I am Maren, I am in my late 20s, I have a 3-month-old baby, and I am married to Calder, who I thought was the calmest most steady person on earth, the kind of guy who reads instruction manuals for fun and alphabetizes the spice rack because it relaxes him, which sounds cute until you realize he can also be talked into doubting reality if the person doing the talking is his mom. His mom is Yvette, and I do not even know how to describe her without sounding dramatic. She is not loud in the obvious way. She is the kind of loud that shows up as little comments that suck the air out of the room. Then she smiles like she just handed you a compliment and expects you to thank her. When I first met her, she did the standard polite act for about a month, then the little dig started. She would ask Calder if he was sure I was comfortable with money talk because of my background. She would talk about how she raised Calder to be traditional and dependable, then look at me like I was a strange product she found on a shelf and did not trust. She never used slurs or anything like that. It was always cleaner than that, which somehow made it worse, like she knew exactly how to push without leaving bruises. My family is mixed. My dad is from a tight-knit immigrant community, my mom is not. I grew up hearing 2 languages in the kitchen and going to a lot of loud family events where everyone teased each other and nobody took it personally. I thought that would be a plus. I thought people liked that kind of warmth. Yvette acted like it meant I was automatically suspicious, like my blood came with a warning label. The weirdest part is Calder did not see it at first, or maybe he did and he just did not want to admit it. He would do that thing where he would squeeze my knee under the table after she said something, like he was trying to reassure me without actually confronting her, and I let it slide because I was trying so hard not to be the stereotype she wanted me to be. I did not want to be the difficult daughter-in-law who pulled him away from his family. I wanted to be chill. I wanted to be above it. Then I got pregnant, and everything sharpened. Yvette was suddenly obsessed with my body, with what I was eating, with what I was doing, with whether I was resting enough, but it never felt like care, it felt like surveillance. She would show up with bags of stuff and act like she was rescuing us from our own incompetence. She would rub my stomach without asking and tell Calder that pregnancy cravings were a sign of weak character, which is a wild thing to say to a grown man who had just watched me throw up in a parking garage stairwell. Because the smell of someone else's peppermint gum made me gag. Calder would laugh nervously and redirect. I would swallow it down because I was tired and I just wanted my baby to be fine. Our baby was born after a long messy delivery that I will not get into, but I will say I was exhausted in a way I did not know a human could be exhausted, and I was sitting in that hospital room with my hair stuck to my forehead and my legs shaking and Calder crying because he was holding her, and I thought, okay, everything else can be annoying, but we made it. She is here. He loves her. We are going to be a little family and everyone can either get on board or stay mad in the distance. Yvette came in later that day, and she did the whole dramatic entrance like she was stepping onto a stage. She gasped. She put her hands over her mouth. She stared at the baby like she was trying to find a hidden detail. She leaned in close and went very quiet. Then she made this little hum noise and said she had expected the baby to have Calder's eyes. Calder was still glowing. He said she was perfect and she looked like both of us, and Yvette smiled like she was indulging a child. She patted his cheek, and I felt my skin crawl. After that, things were busy, newborn blur, sleeplessness, learning how to keep a tiny person alive, and Yvette kept inserting herself like a subscription we could not cancel. She would offer to take the baby so I could sleep, then she would sit in the living room and talk loudly about how some mothers do not bond properly. She would ask me what Calder was eating because men need to be cared for during the stress of a new baby. She would rearrange my kitchen drawers while I was in the nursery. Like she was marking territory. I kept trying to manage it. I set boundaries in the gentlest ways I could. I would say we are doing short visits because the baby gets overstimulated. I would say please ask before picking her up. I would say we have a routine. Yvette would smile and agree and then do what she wanted anyway. And Calder would do the thing where he would look uncomfortable but not intervene. Because his whole life his mom's mood has been treated like weather. You do not argue with a storm, you just wait it out. Then 2 weeks ago, Calder came home from stopping by his parents' place with this weird stiff look, like he had swallowed something sharp and it was stuck halfway down. He washed his hands for a long time. He did not meet my eyes. Then he asked if we could talk, and I thought maybe his dad was sick or something. He sat at the edge of the couch like he was about to be judged in court, and he started out by saying he loved me. He loved the baby. He did not want me to think he was accusing me, and my heart started pounding because when someone says they are not accusing you, that is exactly what they are about to do. He said his mom brought something up. He said she was worried. He said she had been noticing things. He said she mentioned that sometimes people from certain cultures treat marriage differently. And he said that she said the baby did not look like him. And then he said the sentence that still makes me feel like I am watching myself from outside my body. He said, "My mom thinks the baby might not be mine. She says your people cheat. Not even you might have cheated. Not even she thinks you are capable of cheating. But your people cheat. Like it is a trait. Like it is genetic. Like I came with a built-in defect." I did not scream. I did not throw anything. I went very still, because I was holding our baby, and I remember looking down at her tiny mouth making that soft little searching motion, and I remember thinking I cannot let her grow up in a house where her own father thinks her existence is questionable. I asked Calder what he believed, and he could not answer directly. He kept talking around it. He kept saying his mom is protective. His mom has seen things. His mom just wants to make sure he is not being taken advantage of. And I realized in real time that Yvette had successfully planted a seed in the one part of Calder that is both his strength and his weakness, his need for certainty, his love of proof, his fear of being fooled. I told him very calmly that I had never been unfaithful, and I told him that the fact he even entertained it was a serious problem, and Calder started tearing up. He said he hated himself for asking, but he kept saying it would calm his mom down, it would stop the comments, it would prove it, and that is when I understood something important. The DNA test was not actually for him, it was for her, because she had trained him to manage her feelings like they were his responsibility. I did not want to play this game, but I also did not want to live in this limbo where my husband looked at our baby and saw a question mark. So I told him fine, we can do testing, but we are doing it my way, and I said it before I could overthink it, like it came out of some part of me that was done being careful. I told him if Yvette wants DNA involved in family relationships, then everyone can participate, because I was not going to be singled out like the suspicious outsider while she sat there acting like the pure-blood judge of morality. Calder looked confused. He asked what I meant, and I said I meant we test everybody who wants to have an opinion. Calder tried to talk me down. He said that would be insulting. He said his parents would be furious, and I said yes, that is the point, because I was furious too and nobody seemed to care. Now here is where the Christmas part comes in, because his family does this big holiday gathering every year in this old converted dance hall that Yvette rents through her social club. It is not a restaurant. It is a big wooden room with weird framed portraits of local founders on the walls and a stage nobody uses. She loves it because it makes her feel like a person of importance, like she is hosting a formal event, and everyone is trapped there with her. They had already been talking about Christmas since the baby was born. Yvette kept saying this will be the year everyone feels truly blessed. She kept talking about tradition. She kept saying she wanted a family photo with the baby, and I kept nodding because it was easier than fighting while I was sleep deprived. After Calder asked me about paternity, I went into this laser focus mode. I did not cry. I did not spiral. I got practical. I ordered consumer DNA kits that could do ancestry and relative matching, because those arrive quickly and they look like gifts. And I also arranged a legal paternity test for Calder and the baby through a lab with proper identification requirements, because I was not going to rely on a random kit for something that could explode my marriage. I did not tell Yvette any of this. I did not warn anyone. I just quietly prepared. I also bought Yvette a digital photo frame as her main gift, because she is always complaining that nobody prints pictures anymore, and I preloaded it with photos from the last couple years, holidays, weddings, the baby, nothing weird. I just wanted her to have something she could not complain about, and the frame came with an app that auto-syncs if you connect it to a shared album, which becomes relevant later. The week before the gathering, Yvette came by for a visit. She did her usual routine of snatching the baby up and narrating her own importance, and then she started circling the topic again. She asked Calder if he had done the responsible thing yet. She asked him if he had protected himself. She asked if he was being smart, and she said all of it like I was not sitting right there with my nursing cover over my shoulder, like I was furniture. I stood up, took the baby back, and told her that Calder and I handle our marriage privately, and Yvette gave me that look like I had just confirmed every stereotype she had ever held. She said she was only trying to help. She said I should not be so defensive if I have nothing to hide, and I remember thinking, okay, she's enjoying this. Calder looked like he wanted to disappear into the carpet, and that made something in me harden, because I realized this was not just about me. This was about our daughter growing up watching her father fold every time his mom snapped her fingers. Christmas gathering day came, and I was running on 2 hours of sleep in pure spite. I packed the baby bag, I packed bottles, I packed extra clothes, and I packed the kits wrapped up like presents. I told Calder we were going, and he looked like he was walking into a dentist appointment he could not cancel. The hall was already full when we arrived. There were long folding tables covered in cloth. There were those battery candles that flicker. There were wreaths. There was a speaker playing music too loud, and Yvette was in the center of it all directing people like an event planner. She saw us and immediately reached for the baby, and I stepped slightly to the side so Calder had to hand the baby over. which put him in the moment instead of me being the default shield. Yvette cooed at the baby, then she lifted her up and turned her toward the overhead lights, like she was examining her, and she did that hum again, and she said something about how interesting it was that the baby's hair was the shade it was, and I watched 3 different relatives glance at me and then glance away, like nobody wanted to be involved. I forced myself to smile, I exchanged polite greetings, I sat with Calder at a table near the wall, and I waited. After the food was served and people started doing the gift exchange, Yvette stood up and tapped a spoon against a cup. She did a whole little speech about family, loyalty, honesty, raising children with values, and it felt like she was staring straight at me the whole time, like she was daring me to react. When it was time for gifts, I handed Yvette the digital frame first. She tore into it dramatically, she made happy noises, she immediately started telling people to come look, she plugged it in right there because she cannot wait for anything, and the screen lit up and started cycling through photos I had loaded, her with her friends, Calder as a kid, our wedding, the baby, and people oohed and awed, and Yvette looked pleased, like she had just received proof she was beloved. Then I handed out the DNA kits, one by one, like party favors. I did it with a smile. I said I thought it would be fun to do a family ancestry thing together, because Yvette is always talking about heritage and bloodlines and tradition, so why not actually see it? I said we could all swab and send them off, then compare notes later. I leaned into the wholesome angle because I wanted everyone to accept them before they realized what was happening. People laughed, some rolled their eyes, some seemed genuinely excited, and Yvette's smile froze, not fully, but enough that I noticed. She asked what kind of test it was, and I told her it was ancestry and relative matching, the kind that shows family connections, and I watched her throat move like she swallowed. Calder went stiff beside me, because he understood now. He understood I was not just doing a paternity test quietly, I was making a point. I was forcing the entire family to sit in the same spotlight she had aimed at me. Yvette made a little joke about how some things are better left unknown, and she tried to wave it off, but people had already started opening the boxes, and the younger cousins were reading instructions out loud and laughing about spit and swabs, and Yvette could not shut it down without looking suspicious, which was exactly what she had spent weeks making me feel like. So she pivoted, she clapped her hands and told everyone to do it later at home. She said nobody wants to do that at a party. She said it is messy. She said it is unhygienic, and people started shrugging and agreeing, because they were happy to be told what to do. I stood up, still holding my smile, and I said actually we already have the paternity lab scheduled for Calder and the baby, so it is not like we are avoiding hygiene. I said this is just the fun version, and I said it loudly enough that the nearest tables heard, and that is when the room went quiet in that specific way where you can tell everyone is trying not to react. Yvette's face changed, her cheeks got blotchy, she asked what I meant by paternity lab, and I looked right at Calder, because I wanted him in this with me, and I said your son had concerns, so we are clearing them up, and since the concern came from family, I thought family could be involved. Somewhere behind me, someone made a little surprised noise, and then the whispers started, like wind moving through dry leaves. Calder looked like he might throw up. He stood up too, and he tried to speak, but nothing came out at first, and I realized in that moment how deep his mom's control went, because even now he was scared of her reaction more than he was scared of how he had hurt me. Yvette recovered fast, I will give her that. She put on this wounded expression. She said she never accused me directly. She said she only wanted what was best for Calder. She said any mother would worry. She said I was twisting her words, and she tried to make me look hysterical while I was standing there holding a drooling baby and speaking in a normal tone. I did not raise my voice, I just repeated, she told Calder our baby might not be his because my people cheat, and I watched a few relatives flinch, because now it was out in the open, the quiet part was loud. Yvette snapped her eyes to Calder, like daring him to deny it, and Calder finally found his voice. He said she did say it. He said he did not want to believe it, but she kept bringing it up, and now we were testing because he could not handle the doubt anymore. The whole room felt like it tilted, because nobody expected Calder to admit it in front of everyone, and for a second I almost felt bad, almost, because he looked devastated, but then I remembered the nights I lay awake nursing our baby while he stared at the ceiling like he was calculating betrayal percentages. Yvette's lips pressed tight. She said she was protecting him, she said I was manipulating him, she said I was making a spectacle, and I said yes, because you made my marriage a spectacle first. That should have been the peak, that should have been the big blow up, but here is where it got surreal. While this argument was happening, people had gathered closer, and the digital photo frame was still cycling images on a side table near the stage, and at some point, Yvette's phone, or maybe her tablet, connected to the frame's app, because she had scanned the little code in the box without reading what it did. She was trying to take ownership of it, and the frame suddenly paused, blinked, and switched albums. At first it was harmless, a selfie of Yvette in her car with big sunglasses, then another picture of her at some event, then it flipped to a photo that did not belong in a family slideshow. It was Yvette, much younger, sitting on the edge of a bed, hair messy, smiling at whoever took the picture, and there was a man's arm around her waist, and it was very clearly intimate in a way you do not accidentally show your son and his wife at Christmas. The room made this collective sound, like everyone inhaled at once, and then the frame moved to the next photo before anyone could stop it, and it was the same man, and he was kissing her cheek, and Yvette was laughing. Yvette turned and saw it, and I watched the blood drain out of her face so fast it was almost impressive. She lunged toward the frame, but her heel caught on the edge of a rug, and she stumbled, and in that stumble it felt like the universe had decided she did not get to do this gracefully. Calder stared at the screen like he did not understand what he was seeing. Then he looked at his dad, Gareth, who was standing near the back with a cup in his hand, and Gareth's expression was not surprise, it was recognition, like he knew exactly who that was and he had been trying not to think about it for 30 years. Yvette finally got to the frame and started hitting buttons, her hands shaking. She yanked the plug out of the wall, but it was too late. Everyone had seen enough, and the silence that followed was worse than shouting, because it was pure, heavy judgment. Someone asked who the man was, not loudly, but in that soft stunned tone, and Yvette made a broken noise. She tried to say it was private, she tried to say it was a mistake, she tried to say the pictures were old, and then Gareth put his cup down and walked forward, slow and deliberate. Gareth did not yell, he did not explode, he just asked her, right there in front of everyone, if it was him again, and the word again landed like a brick. Yvette's head snapped up, she started crying, real tears, and she reached for Gareth's arm, and he stepped back like she had become unfamiliar. Calder looked between them, and I could see him piecing it together, the way his mom had been so obsessed with bloodlines, the way she had attacked me specifically, the way she had pushed for paternity testing like it was a moral crusade, and I swear I watched his whole childhood reframe in his eyes. Yvette started talking fast. She said it was years ago. She said it meant nothing. She said Gareth and her had issues back then. She said she never wanted Calder to know. And then she looked right at me, like I had orchestrated it, like I had hacked the frame to ruin her life, when really all I did was buy a gift and let her own impatience do the rest. Calder asked who the man was, and Yvette tried to dodge, and Gareth answered instead, because apparently Gareth knows him, apparently everyone in that social circle knows him, and Gareth said the man's name was Soren, and he said it like it tasted bad. Yvette made a sharp sound and told him not to say it, and Gareth said why not, everyone has already seen the photos, and then he looked at Calder, and he said, son, we need to talk. That is when Calder finally looked at me, and his face did something I do not have a word for. It was grief and betrayal and embarrassment and anger, all layered, and he whispered that he was sorry, not just for the test question, but for everything, for letting his mom poison the air. We left early, obviously, because the baby started crying and also because I could not stand the stairs. We packed up in a rush, and on the way out Yvette followed us. She grabbed Calder's sleeve, she begged him not to abandon her. She said I was tearing the family apart, and Calder shook her off, not aggressively, but firmly, like he was finally realizing he had arms of his own. In the car, Calder stared straight ahead and asked me if I had planned that photo thing, and I told him no, and he believed me, which mattered more than I expected it to, and then he asked if I still wanted to do the tests. I told him yes, all of them, because if his mother was going to drag my character into public, then the truth could do the same to her. He nodded once, like he was agreeing to surgery. We got home, put the baby down, and then his dad called, and Calder put it on speaker without thinking, and Gareth's voice sounded hollow. He said he was sorry. He said he did not know how to say it. He said he thinks we should do the relative matching too, because he thinks there is a reason Yvette has been so aggressive about paternity. Calder asked him what he meant, and Gareth paused, then said, because if she cheated back then, we have to consider the possibility you are not mine. Calder went completely white, and I felt my whole body go cold, because suddenly the test was not just about my baby, it was about whether my husband's entire identity was about to crack open. So yeah, I ordered DNA tests for everyone at Christmas, and I did expose the Real affair, but now I am sitting here with a newborn and a husband who is barely sleeping and a mother-in-law who is texting him nonstop like a teenager, and a father-in-law who sounds like he is walking around in a fog, and I do not even know what the next step is supposed to be, because I feel like I lit a match to defend myself and now the whole building is on fire. Update 2 weeks later. A lot has happened, and I am writing this in pieces while the baby naps. Because if I do not get it out of my head I think I am going to start hearing Yvette's voice in the white noise machine. The day after the Christmas gathering, Calder woke up like a different person, not healed, not okay, but like the spell was broken. He did not do his usual quiet routine, he did not make coffee and stare into space. He picked up the baby and walked around the living room with her, bouncing gently, whispering to her, and I could see he was trying to anchor himself to something real. Then his phone started vibrating again and again, and I could tell without looking it was Yvette, because nobody else sends that many messages that fast unless something is on fire. Calder did not open them. He just turned the phone face down, and I watched his hand shake when he did it. Gareth came over later that morning, alone, which I have never seen happen, because in their marriage Yvette does not let Gareth go anywhere without her. She treats him like a purse she wears on her arm, and Gareth looked like he had not slept at all. His eyes were red, his posture was bent, like the past week had aged him. We did not do some dramatic living room confrontation with speeches, because that is not how Gareth operates. He sat at our kitchen table, he asked if he could hold the baby, and when Calder handed her over, Gareth started crying immediately, quiet tears dropping onto the baby's little sock, and he kept apologizing under his breath. Calder asked him if it was true, if Yvette cheated, if that man was still around, if Gareth knew, and Gareth answered in this slow careful way, like each word cost him something. He said the affair happened when Calder was very young. He said he found out because someone in their circle told him. He confronted Yvette. She denied. Then she admitted enough to make him stop asking questions. She promised it ended. She promised she would never humiliate him again. And Gareth stayed, because he had grown up with parents who treated divorce like a public disgrace, and because Calder was little, and because Gareth believed that enduring misery was a form of responsibility. Calder asked why he never told him, and Gareth said because he did not want Calder growing up thinking love is conditional. And Calder made this short harsh laugh and said it is a little late for that. Gareth also said something that made my stomach twist. He said Yvette has been weird about Calder's paternity for a long time, not openly, but in small ways, like she would get defensive when people commented on Calder not looking much like Gareth, like she would overdo the praise of Calder's features that supposedly came from her side of the family, and Gareth said he had always had this quiet fear that Calder might not be his. But he never tested because he was scared of the answer, and because he loved Calder anyway. That last part should have been comforting, but it landed heavy, because I could see Calder hearing it as, I loved you anyway, which is not what anyone wants to hear when they are questioning their entire origin story. After Gareth left, Calder finally opened Yvette's messages, and I saw the screen over his shoulder for a second, and it was not apology, it was not remorse, it was panic and blame. She was saying I had set her up, she was saying I had hacked the frame, she was saying I was cruel, she was saying the baby turned me into a monster, she was saying Calder needed to come talk to her without me, because I was manipulating him. Calder did not respond. He blocked her, then unblocked her, then blocked again, like his thumb could not accept what his brain decided, and I did not tell him what to do, because I did not want to be another person controlling his choices. I just sat beside him and kept my hand on his forearm so he knew he was not alone. The paternity lab appointment happened a couple days later, and it was not dramatic either. It was clinical. They checked our IDs, they did cheek swabs, they had Calder sign forms, they had me sign forms as the baby's mother, and I could see Calder's jaw clenched the entire time, like he was trying to hold his face in place. We also mailed the consumer kits, and yes, some relatives did participate, which surprised me, because I assumed everyone would toss them in a drawer and pretend nothing happened, but a few of the cousins were apparently excited about the ancestry part, and one aunt who loves gossip treated it like a season of a reality show. She kept texting Calder asking when results would come in, which he ignored. Yvette tried to regain control in other ways. Since she could not reach Calder directly, she started calling me, which she has never done. She left voice messages where she sounded like she was crying, telling me she wanted to fix things woman to woman, and then the next message would be cold, telling me I was poisoning Calder, telling me I was using the baby as a weapon, telling me I was going to regret humiliating her. I did not respond. I saved them, mostly because I did not trust her not to rewrite history later. A week after Christmas, Gareth called Calder again and asked if Calder would meet him somewhere private to talk, not a restaurant, not a public place where people would stare. He suggested the little workshop space behind Gareth's storage unit, because Gareth restores old furniture as a hobby and it is the only place Yvette never goes, because it smells like varnish and she hates getting dust on her shoes. Calder went. I stayed home with the baby, and I did not love that he went alone, but he said he needed to talk to his dad without feeling like he was being watched. When Calder came back, his hand smelled like sawdust, and he sat on the floor in the nursery and stared at the crib for a long time. Then he told me Gareth admitted something new. Gareth said Yvette did not just have an affair in the past. Gareth thinks she never fully cut contact with Soren, not in a romantic way the whole time necessarily, but enough that Gareth always felt like he was sharing space with a shadow, and Gareth said the photos on the frame looked recent enough that he could not pretend anymore. Because Yvette's hairstyle in one picture matched something she has been wearing lately, and because the bedding in the background looked like a rental cabin they supposedly never used. Calder asked if Gareth was leaving her, and Gareth did not answer directly. He just said he needed to protect whatever dignity he had left, and Calder told me Gareth looked like a man who finally got too tired to keep lying to himself. Then the consumer DNA results started coming back for the relatives who actually did them, and this is where everything got uglier without anyone even raising their voice. One of the cousins, the one who treats everything like entertainment, got her results and saw that she had a close match labeled as half-sibling, and she panicked and called the whole family, not in a group chat, but in that old-fashioned phone tree way where one person calls another, then another, and suddenly everybody knows something without any single message existing that you can point to. The half-sibling match was tied to Gareth's side of the family, which made no sense unless there was cheating somewhere, and suddenly the family was not just whispering about Yvette's affair, they were whispering about multiple secrets, like a rotten floorboard that collapses and reveals more rot underneath. Calder got dragged into it because everyone kept asking him if he got his results yet, and he kept saying he did not want to talk about it, and people kept talking anyway. Then our paternity lab result came in, and I want to be clear, the baby is Calder's, the report was definitive, there was no ambiguity, and I felt this wave of relief so intense I had to sit down, not because I doubted myself, but because I was exhausted from being treated like a suspect in my own marriage. Calder read the report 3 times, then he started crying, not loud, just tears dripping onto the paper, and he kept repeating that he was sorry, he kept saying he hated that he let his mom get in his head, he kept saying he hated that he ever looked at me like I was capable of that. I did not give him a big speech, I did not do forgiveness theater, I just told him we will deal with what happened, but the baby is yours, and that is done. He asked if he could tell his mom, like he still wanted to appease her, like he thought if he brought her proof she would stop, and I told him he could, but I also told him it would not matter, because people like Yvette do not want truth, they want control. He sent Gareth the result instead, because Gareth deserved to know, and Gareth replied with a single message that said thank you, and then he asked Calder if he would be willing to do a paternity test with him too, something official, not just the consumer match, because he needed certainty before he made any decisions. Calder stared at that request for a long time, then he agreed, and that was the moment I realized Calder was not just reacting anymore, he was stepping into his own life, even if it hurt. The father-son paternity test happened the next day at the same lab, and I did not go in with them. I sat in the car with the baby and watched people walk in and out of the building like it was any normal errand, and I remember thinking, it is wild how the world keeps functioning while your family cracks open. Yvette found out about the baby result anyway, because someone overheard something, or because she guessed, or because she has spies, I genuinely do not know, but she showed up at our house the following evening unannounced, and I know one of the bans in my own head has always been do not have door confrontations, but this was not me showing up at her place, this was her showing up at ours, pounding like she owned the place. Calder did not open the door, he spoke through it, which felt symbolic in a way I cannot fully explain, like he was finally putting an actual barrier between them. Yvette started crying and begging, then switched to anger in seconds. She told him he was ungrateful, she told him I was isolating him, she told him a real man would not let his wife disrespect his mother, and Calder told her the baby is his. The test proved it, and Yvette went quiet for one beat, then she said tests can be faked, she said labs make mistakes, she said I probably found a way to rig it, and the way she said it made my skin prickle, because she was not even trying to be believable. She just wanted to keep the accusation alive because it kept me beneath her. Calder told her to leave, Yvette refused, she kept talking, and then Gareth pulled into our driveway. I did not even know he was coming, but he walked up slowly, and he looked at Yvette like he was seeing her for the first time, and he told her to get in the car, not asked, told, and Yvette turned on him, calling him weak, calling him pathetic, and Gareth said he was done being humiliated, and he said it in that flat calm voice that is scarier than yelling. Yvette tried to argue, and Gareth said one more word, just one sentence, and it shut everything down. He said the lab will tell us if Calder is mine, and if he is not, you will not be standing at my son's door ever again. Yvette froze, then she started shaking, and she looked at Calder through the glass like she was trying to memorize him, like she was about to lose him, and for a second I saw something that almost looked like regret, but it vanished fast, replaced by that familiar defensive hardness. She left with Gareth, and the driveway went quiet, and Calder slid down the wall inside the entryway and put his head in his hands, and I sat next to him on the floor, the baby in my arms, and we just listened to her breathe for a while. 2 days after that, the lab result came back for Gareth and Calder, and Gareth is not Calder's biological father, and the silence after Calder read it was so thick I felt like it pressed against my ears. Calder did not scream, he did not break anything, he just went very still, then he walked into the nursery, picked up our baby, and held her so gently, like he was afraid even his heartbreak might spill onto her. Gareth called later, voice shaking, and he told Calder he filed for separation. He said he could not stay after knowing for sure, and he said he was sorry. He said he loved Calder no matter what, and Calder told him he still loved him too, and that part made me cry, because it was the only thing in this whole mess that felt clean. Yvette has not contacted us directly since the result, but her sister has been calling Calder, telling him his mother is unwell, telling him he needs to be compassionate, telling him I am controlling him, and Calder has stopped answering unknown numbers, which is new for him, because he used to pick up every call like it was an obligation. So that is where we are. Baby is Calder's. Calder is not Gareth's. Yvette's affair is no longer rumor. It is fact sitting in a lab report, and Christmas is officially the worst gift she has ever given herself. Final update 3 months later. Things did not calm down, they just shifted shape, like smoke that moves into different rooms. After the father-son result, Gareth moved out of the house he shared with Yvette and into a small unit attached to the same workshop space behind his storage place. It is not fancy, it is basically a room with a kitchenette and a little bathroom, but it is his, and he kept saying he could finally breathe without hearing Yvette's voice bounce off the walls. Calder started visiting Gareth there sometimes, not constantly, because newborn life is still newborn life, but enough that I could tell he was clinging to Gareth as the one stable thread from before all this, because biology is one thing, but Gareth is still the man who taught him to ride a bike and sat through every school presentation and fixed his first car radio with him. Yvette, meanwhile, went into full image management mode, and she did it the way she always does, not by actually fixing anything, but by trying to control the story so hard that people get tired and give up. She started calling relatives she had not spoken to in years. She started showing up at every little community thing she could. She started posting staged smiling photos with captions about faith and forgiveness and family sticking together. She even started telling people she was being bullied by an unstable daughter-in-law who had always been jealous of her relationship with her son. I only know that because it came back to me through the weirdest chain. Calder's old high school band teacher, of all people, ran into Yvette at a winter craft market and later messaged Calder's dad asking if Calder was okay, because apparently Yvette had been telling strangers that her son was being isolated from her by a woman who was hiding something about the baby. She was still doing it, still pushing that poison like it was the only language she knew. Calder did not want to hear any of it at first. He kept saying we should ignore her, starve it out, but you cannot starve something out when the person feeding it is willing to spray it everywhere like a lawn sprinkler, and the worst part was how she framed it. She stopped saying my people cheat out loud, because she learned that phrase sounded ugly when repeated back. Instead she started saying things like cultural differences, and certain communities, and different values, like she was trying to keep the same message but wrap it in cleaner paper. Gareth called one evening and asked if he could come by, and I said yes, because I could hear it in his voice that he was holding something heavy. He showed up with a small plastic bin and sat at our kitchen table again, and he looked so tired that it made my throat tighten. He told us Yvette had drained their joint account, not everything, but enough to make a point, and she told him it was for legal advice and living expenses. She told him he was cutting her off so she had to protect herself, which was ridiculous because he had not cut her off. He had simply moved out and stopped pretending, but Yvette sees any boundary as an attack. Gareth opened the bin and slid it across the table to Calder. Inside were baby photos, school drawings, a couple of those old camcorder tapes, and a manila envelope of documents. He said he was taking anything he could not bear to lose, because he did not trust Yvette not to destroy it if she got mad enough. Calder's hands shook when he picked up a crayon drawing of a stick figure family. The little writing on it said Dad and Cal, and Calder's eyes got wet, and Gareth reached across the table and covered Calder's hand with his own, and there was no speech, no big moment, just two people trying to keep something intact. Then Gareth told us Yvette had been contacting Soren again, openly now, not like a secret, like she wanted Gareth to know she had options, and she wanted to frighten him. Gareth said he found out because someone forwarded him a screenshot from a social club page where Yvette had commented on one of Soren's posts with a heart emoji and a little inside joke, like she was 16 and trying to make someone jealous. Calder's face went tight, and he asked if Soren knew Calder existed, and Gareth said he honestly did not know. He said Soren had always been careful, always slippery, the kind of man who leaves a room before you can pin him down. That night Calder barely slept. He kept getting up and walking into the nursery to stand over the crib, like seeing our daughter breathe would keep him from spinning out, and at some point close to morning he told me he felt stupid for ever doubting me, and I did not do the thing where I reassure him 1,000 times. I just told him we will keep going, and he nodded like he was trying to memorize the words. About a week after that, the consumer DNA kits caused a second explosion, because one of the relatives who had taken it seriously, not the gossip cousin, a different one who is quiet and tends to keep to herself, got a match notification that made no sense. She was connected to someone listed as a close family match with Yvette's surname, but the age range was way off, and she asked her mom, and her mom asked Yvette's sister, and suddenly the phone tree started up again, except this time it moved with purpose. Gareth called Calder and asked him to come to the workshop unit behind the storage place, because he did not want to talk in a house Yvette could show up at, and I stayed home with the baby again, even though I hated being separated when things felt unstable, but Calder said he needed to face it without feeling like he was breaking in front of me. When he came back, he told me the match was likely a child Yvette had before she married Gareth, a child nobody knew about, a child that might have been placed with another branch of the family quietly, and Gareth said he had found old paperwork once, back when they first married, and Yvette had ripped it out of his hands and told him to mind his business, and he had, because that was the pattern. She made a demand and everyone complied. Calder sat on the edge of our bed and stared at the wall while he told me this, and he kept rubbing his palm against his jeans like he was trying to scrub a feeling off his skin, and he said he could not tell if this made him feel more angry or more numb, because it was like realizing the house you grew up in was built on a sinkhole and everyone just kept putting rugs over the cracks. 2 days later, Soren contacted Calder directly through a mutual connection, not through the DNA site, not through a text chain, but by calling Gareth's storage unit office and leaving a message, which is such a bizarre choice that it almost made me laugh, except nothing about it was funny. The storage manager wrote the message down on a little slip and gave it to Gareth, and Gareth drove it over to us, because he did not want it sitting where Yvette could get to it first. Calder held the slip like it was contaminated, and then he called the number from a different phone than his usual one, because he did not want Yvette getting access through shared plans or anything, and he put it on speaker while I sat on the couch with the baby asleep on my chest. I could feel her warm weight rise and fall, and it grounded me while my insides wanted to crawl out of my body. Soren's voice was smooth, older than I expected, with that confident calm that makes you immediately distrust a person. He said he heard there were questions. He said he did not want to cause trouble. He said he would answer what he could, and Calder asked him straight out if he was his biological father. There was a pause, then Soren said he did not know. He said Yvette told him years ago that it could not be. He said she told him the timing did not line up, and he said he believed her because he did not want his life blown up. He said it in this casual way, like admitting cowardice was just honesty. Calder asked if the affair had been going on recently, and Soren tried to dodge by saying relationships are complicated, and Calder's voice sharpened. He told him not to talk like that. He told him to answer, and Soren finally said yes, it had been on and off, that Yvette would reach out when she felt neglected or angry, that it was never meant to be public, and that he did not think it mattered now because they were older and it was just comfort. I watched Calder's knuckles go white around the phone, and I could tell he was picturing his mom sneaking around for decades while preaching loyalty at holiday dinners, and Soren said he was willing to do a test if Calder wanted, a proper one, not a consumer kit, because he wanted clarity too. Calder said he would consider it, then ended the call abruptly, and for a long time he did not speak. He just sat there breathing slow like he was trying not to break something. The next part is where it got scary in a practical way. Yvette started trying to access the baby without going through us. She could not reach Calder directly, so she started reaching sideways. She called our building management office and asked what our schedule was. She tried to get them to confirm whether we were home during the day, which the manager later told us because it creeped him out. She tried to contact Calder's workplace front desk pretending there was a family emergency, which they also told him because his workplace is small and they know his voice and his life. She even tried to approach Gareth's workshop space by showing up during business hours at the storage place office and demanding the staff tell her which unit was his. And that is when the storage manager finally snapped and told her she needed to stop harassing people. Gareth filed a report with the storage place and got her name put on a list, so the office would not give her information, and he put a lockbox on his unit door that required a code, and he started moving his most important tools into a different secured unit under a separate contract, because he was terrified she would destroy them out of spite, which felt dramatic until I remembered the way she grabbed at Calder's sleeve at Christmas like she owned him. Then one afternoon, about a month after the test results, Calder got a call from the social club that rents that old dance hall, the same place as the Christmas gathering, and the woman on the phone sounded flustered. She asked if Calder could come by because there was an issue with the digital photo frame that had been gifted to Yvette. Apparently Yvette had returned it to the club office claiming it was defective and had malicious content loaded. She wanted the club to document it so she could accuse me of tampering, and she had been pressuring the club's volunteer board to take a formal stance, because she wanted official-looking paper she could wave around. Calder almost refused, but then he did this thing he has started doing lately, where he takes a breath and decides he will not be controlled by avoidance anymore. He asked if I wanted to come, and I said yes, because if she was trying to build a narrative about me, I wanted to be in the room when it was discussed. We went in the afternoon when the hall was empty. It felt eerie without people, just that polished wood smell and the portrait staring down. The board members were there, 3 women and 1 man, all older, all looking uncomfortable like they had been dragged into someone else's mess, and Yvette was there too, sitting with perfect posture like she was waiting for a hearing, her hair done, her lipstick perfect, like she thought looking composed would make her right. She did not greet me. She addressed the room. She said she was concerned about the safety of her family. She said there was a targeted campaign against her. She said she had evidence that her daughter-in-law had set her up with inappropriate photos, and she said she had been humiliated publicly and now her son was being kept from her grandchild. She made it sound like I had locked Calder in a basement and stolen his free will. The board chair asked what outcome she wanted, and Yvette said she wanted a written statement that the photos were not hers, that the device had been compromised, and that the club regretted hosting an event where she was attacked. She wanted a formal apology on club letterhead. Calder's face went flat. In a way I have never seen, he told the chair we did not ask for this meeting, that the frame was a gift, and that Yvette herself connected her device to it during the party, and he told them the photos were from her account, not mine, and the chair asked if we could prove that. Yvette smiled like she had been waiting for that, like she thought we could not. This is where the app mattered, because the frame company keeps a basic connection log. It is not some hacking investigation, it is just a list of devices that paired, with timestamps and partial identifiers, and the club's tech volunteer had printed it, because they were tired of the drama and wanted it done. He put the printout on the table, and he pointed to the first pairing event. It happened during the gift exchange, and it came from a device labeled with Yvette's name, her actual name, not a random string. Yvette's expression flickered for half a second, then she tried to laugh it off. She said names can be spoofed. She said someone could have set it up to look like her, and the tech volunteer looked baffled. He said that is not really how normal people operate, and the board chair asked Yvette, very gently, if the simplest explanation was that she had accidentally synced her own private album. Yvette's voice got sharper. She said the simplest explanation was that my kind of person was capable of anything, and she said it like she forgot where she was, like the mask slipped because she got cornered. The room went dead quiet, and the board chair's face changed, not angry, but cold, and she asked Yvette to repeat what she meant, and Yvette realized what she had done. She tried to soften it. She tried to say she meant outsiders. She meant people who marry in and do not respect tradition, and Calder leaned forward and told the chair, calmly, that this is what his mother has been saying about his wife since she got pregnant, that she accused Maren of cheating because of her background, and that is why the paternity test even happened. The board chair asked if Yvette had said those words at the Christmas event, and two board members exchanged a look, because apparently they had heard rumors, and Yvette tried to pivot into tears. She said she was a mother who had been betrayed. She said she was under stress. She said things she did not mean. The chair did not engage with the performance. She told Yvette the club was not going to issue any statement supporting her claims. She said the club would not be used as a tool to harass another member's family, and she said, with that same calm coldness, that after hearing the language Yvette just used, the board would be reviewing her membership conduct, and she asked Yvette to leave the hall for the rest of the meeting. Yvette stood up so fast her chair scraped. She looked at Calder like he had slapped her. She told him he was choosing a stranger over his own mother, and Calder told her I am his family, and the baby is his family, and Gareth is his family, and if she cannot treat us with respect she does not get access to any of us. Yvette tried to redirect to me. She told me I was smug. She told me I would get what is coming, and the board chair told her, firmly, to leave now. And for the first time I saw Yvette actually have to obey someone who was not emotionally trapped by her. She grabbed her purse and walked out stiffly, heels clicking across the wood like a threat. We left right after, because the baby was with a sitter for only a short window, and in the car Calder's hands were shaking, not from fear exactly, from adrenaline, because he had finally said the thing he has swallowed for years in front of people who mattered to his mother. That should have been the end of it, but Yvette is the kind of person who escalates when she loses control. The next day, Gareth called, and he sounded oddly energized, like anger had given him a spine. He said Yvette showed up at the storage place with Soren, together, and they tried to claim Gareth had stolen marital property by moving his tools into a separate unit. They demanded the manager let them in, and when the manager refused, Yvette started yelling about lawsuits and theft, and Soren tried to play calm mediator, like he was some reasonable party. The storage manager called local security for the complex, not the police at first, and the security officer told them to leave. Yvette refused. Then the officer called police, and when the police arrived, Yvette put on her crying voice and told them Gareth was unstable and being manipulated by his son and daughter-in-law. She tried to make it into a domestic situation where everyone would back away and tell Gareth to cooperate to keep the peace. It did not work. Because Gareth had done something smart for once. He had already asked the storage office to print his lease agreements, payment history, and the list of authorized users, his name only, and he had his separation filing paperwork in his car, not to wave around dramatically, but to show he was taking lawful steps. The officer looked at the documents, listened to the manager, and told Yvette and Soren they needed to leave the property and not return, because it was trespass at that point. Gareth told me later that Yvette looked shocked, like she could not believe reality did not bend for her, and Soren got angry in a quiet way. He told Gareth he was being petty. He told him a real man would handle this privately, and Gareth told him he had handled it privately for decades and it got him nothing but humiliation. 2 weeks after that, Calder agreed to do the test with Soren, because the not knowing was eating him alive. They scheduled it through the same lab network Gareth used. Proper identification, proper chain of custody, no drama. Calder did not tell Yvette. He did not ask permission. He just did it. When the result came back, Soren was Calder's biological father, and Calder did not cry this time. He just stared at the report, then folded it carefully and put it in a drawer, like he was filing it away as a fact, not a relationship. Soren called Calder and tried to sound gentle. He said he would like to meet. He said he did not want to replace Gareth. He said he just wanted to know his son. Calder told him he already has a dad, and he told him if he wanted to do something decent, he could stop appearing beside Yvette like her backup dancer. Soren tried to argue. Calder ended the call, and that was it. No ongoing debate, no back and forth. Calder blocked him. The final blow-up happened at the same social club, not during a party, but during a small membership meeting in a side room of a community arts building. The board had scheduled a conduct review for Yvette, and somehow Yvette found out Calder had attended the Christmas event as a guest of a member, and she demanded he come speak in her defense. She could not contact him directly, so she left a message through an aunt, then through another relative, then through Gareth, like she was trying to route around the wall Calder built. Calder decided to go, not for her, but because he wanted to say one thing in a room where she could not twist it later. He asked me to come, and I brought the baby, because I was done hiding in my own life. The meeting was boring for the first 10 minutes, procedural stuff, the chair reading a complaint summary, Yvette sitting there with her chin lifted, acting offended. Then the chair asked Calder if he wanted to speak, and Yvette turned to him with this expectant look, like she thought he would fold. Calder stood up, held the baby carrier handle for a second like it steadied him, and told them Yvette accused his wife of cheating because of her background. He told them she pushed him to question his own child. He told them she used racist coded language in front of family, and when confronted, she doubled down. He said she also carried on a long affair while preaching loyalty and using morality as a weapon. Yvette's face twisted. She started to interrupt, and the chair told her to wait, and Calder added that Yvette is no longer welcome in our home. She is not to contact his workplace, and she is not to attempt to access our child through anyone else. He said if she continues, we will pursue whatever protective steps we are legally allowed to pursue, and he said it without shaking, like a door closing. Yvette finally got to speak, and she tried the same tactics. She cried, she blamed, she called me manipulative. She said Calder was confused. She said Gareth poisoned him. She said this was all because I was offended by harmless concern. Then she looked right at the baby and said she deserved her grandmother, like the baby was a prop she could claim. The board chair asked Yvette a simple question, whether she would agree to stop spreading accusations about Calder's wife and stop trying to contact Calder through third parties, and Yvette hesitated, because agreeing would mean losing the only leverage she had, and in that hesitation, the room made its decision for her. The chair announced Yvette's membership was suspended indefinitely, effective immediately, and she was asked to leave the building, not as a punishment speech, just a decision. 2 security staff for the building walked her to the hallway because the board had arranged it ahead of time, which told me they had already decided they were done tolerating her. Yvette walked out stiffly, and right before she disappeared down the corridor she turned her head and stared at Calder, and Calder did not react. He just shifted the baby carrier slightly and kept his eyes forward. A week after that, Gareth's divorce was finalized enough that he could legally separate finances and lock down accounts, and he moved the last of his personal items out with a neutral moving service from the storage place. Not friends, not relatives, no dramatic convoy, just professionals and a checklist. Yvette did not get the performance she wanted. We have not heard from Yvette directly since the club suspension, and the relatives who used to pressure Calder to be compassionate have gone quiet, because now there is nothing to hide behind. No more pretending this is just a misunderstanding. Calder still visits Gareth at the workshop unit, and Gareth comes to our place sometimes to sit with the baby while Calder cooks, not as a replacement grandparent, not as a symbol, just as the person he has always been in Calder's life. And the first time Gareth held the baby after everything settled, he kissed her forehead and whispered that she was safe here, and Calder nodded once like that was the only promise that mattered. The last time I saw Yvette was from far away, at a weekday morning community market. She was walking alone, no entourage, no social circle orbiting her, just her carrying a small bag and moving fast like she did not want anyone to see her. And when she spotted Calder across the aisle with the baby carrier strapped to his chest, she stopped like her feet caught on something. Then she turned and walked the other way without a word.